All right, here we go. All right, welcome to today's event. What to expect when moving in. Today we have four great presenters today. They'll be going on in detail about the process of moving in and what to expect when you will be moving in. And it's a great opportunity to learn about, certain topics. So we have Mariah Reagan, our community relations director, who will go first. Then we have Catherine at Ardent. Sorry, I said your name wrong. She's our service manager. We have our community health director, Andrea Bradford. She'll go in detail about what she'll do when move-ins. And we have our executive director, Danielle Parkins. So at some point at the end, we'll be doing a Q&A for questions. But if you do have questions while we're doing our presentation, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll try to answer them at the end. All questions we would like to try to answer at the Q&A section at the end. So if you don't want to forget any questions, again, just write them down. But other than that, we should get right into the presentation and we'll start with Mariah. All right, take it away, Mariah.
Everybody, it's good to see you all. I see all my familiar names and faces, so that's exciting. Thank you for joining us. This is the first time we've tried this type of panel and format. Basically, since you're all on the waiting list and or family members of somebody on the waiting list, we've gone over most likely a lot of information, and after a certain amount of time, things start to get a little bit blurry in terms of how the process works and what to expect, as you move forward, selecting an apartment or just making that move. So I'm going to share my screen, and we put together just a little, let's see here. How does that look? Good? Can people see it? All right. So we wanted to basically just outline for everybody sort of the steps that happen, as some of you are on the waiting list and you are anticipating a move maybe a year or more into the future, and some of you are ready to move sooner. But essentially, once you make that big decision and you select an apartment, sometimes there's, a little anxiety about, okay, what's going to happen then and how am I going to get through the move and all the things that need to happen. So we wanted you to, be able to ask questions and learn a little bit more about that. I'm sure I've called all of you at some point and offered you an apartment and asked if you're ready to move. And as you know, the waiting list is very fluid. As time moves on, you sometimes change your preferences or your time frame. And if you aren't ready to make a move or select an apartment, it doesn't affect your placement on the waiting list. You can just sort of hang in there until something comes up or till you're, ready to make that decision. So, but once you do select that perfect, beautiful, amazing apartment that you've been waiting for, these are some of the things that will happen next. So the first step is, once you come in and look at a unit, then you can have, usually I give at least a couple of days to make the decision if you want to move forward and reserve the apartment. And that gives you time to sort of look at the floor plan, talk to your family and decide if this is going to be the right one for you. And then if you move forward with that, then we go ahead and do an apartment selection. At that point, you would reserve the unit. So the first step for reserving the unit is to pay the reservation deposit, which is $5,000. Most of you have paid $2,000 or some amount to be on the waiting list. So of course, we would put that towards the $5,000 reservation. At that point, we would also review the move-in paperwork with you. So basically, we ask for some basics. We want to go over the contract documents that you would sign and let you review them. We ask for some of your preferences. We talk about your health history and get some of your health background, and that will help prepare you for your meeting with Andrea, our community health director. For the Aljoya model, you have up to 60 days before you sign and close. So the next step, within the first 30 days, you work on your paperwork and we schedule your meeting with Andrea. And then at the 30-day from your reservation date, 10% of your entrance fee will be due. So that would be, of course, less the $5,000. And that can be, somewhat flexible with the timing, but we aim to keep with this time frame. And then around that 30-day mark, you will also have your meeting with Andrea, and she'll tell you more about that. 60 days after you have had your meeting with Andrea and you've gone through all your paperwork, then you would schedule your final signing, and that happens with Danielle, our executive director. And at that time, you sign the resident and services agreement and make your final payment. The remaining balance of your entrance fee would be due at that time. And the day you sign is also the day that your monthly rent starts. And you would do your walkthrough of the apartment, you'd get your keys, we would give you the clicker for the garage if you drive. So all those little details about starting that process. And the 60 days is the maximum amount of time. You can certainly make all of this happen in less than 60 days, but we give you up to that time to get through all of this and support you through the whole thing. One other thing that I wanted to mention during this is that we do still offer a bridge loan. Most everybody making this move does have to sell their home to make a move like this, or at least that's part of the process. So our bridge loan is offered through Washington Trust Bank. It's a year-long interest only loan. Most people use their home as collateral, and Aljoya will reimburse the first month interest, and we will pay for the appraisal if they ask for an appraisal. And then you work directly with the banker at Washington Trust on this. So that's the general outline of the 60-day time frame. One of the things we always want everybody to remember is that we're here to support you, and you've been through a big process to get to the point of selecting an apartment. And so even though it can be a very nerve-wracking time, it's also a very exciting time. But we have all supported hundreds of residents through this process, and we're here to help you through all of these steps. So lean on us and ask us for help and trust what we can do to help you, and that's what we're here for, and that's the exciting part of the process. So I'm definitely happy to answer questions at the end. I'm going to pass it on to Andrea to talk a little bit more about her part of this 60-day time frame, and then go from there.
Thanks, Mariah. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Andrea Bradford, and I am the Community Health Director here at Aljoya Thornton Place. One of the responsibilities that I have as the Community Health Director is to complete the health assessment for new residents. So once the clinical records from your doctor is received, I typically get a chance to review that in preparation for our time together. Once I have reviewed it, DeWitt will reach out and make an appointment with you for us to meet. So a couple of reasons why we do these health assessments. Essentially, it gives me a chance to get to know you a little bit, know about your medical history, including any current or active health conditions that you have. Another reason we complete this health assessment is to really get a baseline of your current health, so that in the future, should you need some support from our assisted living program, I would have a chance to pull out this document and have something to compare it with. It usually lasts for about an hour for each person. So if you are coming in as a couple, plan for about a couple hours total with me. And I do it separately for each person. So assessment details, what is included in our assessment? It is functional in nature, meaning we go over your typical day, how you manage your activities of daily living, such as getting dressed, completing your showers, is that safe, preparing your meals, and completing chores around your home like laundry, just general housekeeping. During this time together, we would also complete a cognitive exercise called the slums. And that's probably the part of the assessment that a lot of residents are most anxious about, because they feel like it's a pass or fail, and it's really not. It's nothing to be anxious about. It just gives me an idea of where you are cognitively when you move in. During our time together, I also go over outside providers or services that could be available to you here at Aljoya, including foot care with our registered nurse. Audiologist comes to the building. We also have access to a nurse practitioner from UW Medicine. She is here twice a week, and she does not have to be your primary care provider. You can see her in an urgent care type of manner, as long as you do not have Kaiser Permanente insurance. That's the caveat there. What else? I think that's about it as far as assessment details. After the assessment, after you've signed and you've physically moved in, I see you again 72 hours after you've physically moved in for a COVID rapid test. We have that available here in the building. It takes 15 minutes and you get your results, and that's it. And that's all I have. And I think we have Catherine up next.
Very good. Thank you very much. My name is Catherine Arendt, and I'm the At Your Service Manager. And my very favorite thing to do is I am move coordinator. So when you choose an apartment at Aljoya, Mariah sends me information, and I will then give you a call to set up a time when we can meet at your home so I can help you. But a little bit about me. First of all, this move coordination is a complimentary service. So I really encourage everyone to use that. It makes the move go so much smoother. And I'm like your fairy godmother sitting on your shoulder, answering all your questions. And I have been through this for 15 years. My background before I came to Aljoya was as a senior move manager, helping seniors move from their homes, most often to retirement communities, but not always that. And so I worked intimately with people in their homes, helping them downsize and go through everything before they made their move. And so really the very, very first thing, and I know probably many of you have already been to downsize workshops. We recently had one for all of our communities. You might have joined that. And I don't want you to feel like you're in downsize overload, but it is really a very important step to making your whole move go smoothly when the time does come. Because if you've already done some of that work, then it's much easier to see what in fact you'll want to move with you. So I highly recommend that you take time to start working on that. So I'm going to give you a call and I'm going to set up an appointment, and the purpose of the appointment is to come to your home if you live locally and meet with you and have you walk me through your house, and you are going to tell me what you would like to bring. And oftentimes people are not really sure what they want to bring because they're not sure that it's going to fit. And so I measure everything, what you know for sure you want to bring, what you think you might want to bring if it would fit. I just measure everything and I take pictures. Then I go back to my office and I have a wonderful floor plan that's not pretty like the ones Mariah gives you, but really to scale. I've already measured all the wall spaces in the apartment. And then I take that floor plan and I use a magnetic board. I'm not quite into the computer age on that, but I can put the floor plan on the board. I put furniture pieces that closely, if not completely match the measurements of your furniture. And I come up with a floor plan for you. I'm a space planner, I'm not a designer, but I have done these plans and worked on these apartments for 12 years that Aljoya has been opened. And so I'm very familiar and very comfortable with doing that. And then I send that to you and then you tell me if that is okay with you or if you want to move things. So we collaborate always the whole time going through the process so that, because this is your home you're moving to, so it's not my way, it's your way. But the number one thing is we want to make sure that everything you bring has a place so that you are not feeling overwhelmed in your new home with too much stuff and not being able to move around. We want to make sure that things, that you have space, comfortable space to move in, and that is safe for you too. So that is one of the first things. And really, I find that step alone is the most reassuring step for people as they're making this huge transition from their homes. Often many of you have been in your homes for many, many years, and this has been a really hard decision for you to get to this place. And I am very aware of that. And I feel like I have a calming influence, but just having that information really makes people relax and feel good about what they're doing. And then I'm also just a phone call away. You can call me anytime you have a question about anything related to your move, and I will be happy to help. And no question is too big or too small. If I don't know the answer, I can help find the answer for you. So use me. I really use me. And now, if you are not local, you live out of the greater Seattle area, or even out of state, I can help. I do this many, many times. And then I need your collaboration with maybe you taking pictures of your furniture and measuring them for me and sending that. And I have spent hours on the telephone working with people to come up with a really good floor plan for them and finding them a mover that can work with even our movers when they get here. So not that we have our own personal movers, but local movers that maybe can help come and unload the truck and do that. So all of those services, even if you're in another state or in another area of Washington and you need some services of what do I do with the rest of this stuff, I have resources to help you find that too. So everyone is very able to use this service. And then I also, I mail you the plan, so that's good. And then also I will have mover referrals for you. I have about 4 different moving companies that I like to use, 4 or 5 sometimes. And so depending upon what your needs are, because some people want to have packing and unpacking, and that can take a whole section of the moving industry called move management services. Others just want the things moved and they're going to unpack themselves, or they have lots of family support that can help them. So whatever your special need is, we can find a mover for you. And I know it's something that I'm used to this because I'm helping people move all the time. And but it probably isn't something that you are really on top of as far as what makes for a good moving company. So I can help you with that. Then also when you move in, there's the telephone and the internet and the television and getting that set up. And that is called Comcast, which everyone goes, oh my gosh, I don't want to call it Comcast. And it works a little different in our communities. So, and we have a really good system that has set up for all of our Era Living communities. So I'll work with you. DeWitt also will work with you to get that set up. So it's just, everything is set up really nicely in your apartment. And I'll just give you details as I'm working with you on that. We don't have to do too much about that. And also, we have change of address cards. These really beautiful, they're little postcards that have a picture of the outside of the community. And on the back, it's just, we've moved, here's our new address. You can include your phone number, your email address if you prefer. They are complimentary. And so we can get those ordered for you too, if you would desire that. And then on move day, I am there for you. So I come over, I meet the movers, I work with them, make sure the elevators are locked down, and make sure everything goes smoothly. If there's issues, then I'm there to follow up with that. We provide lunch for you and the movers to keep everyone happy and feeling strong, and just to make this whole process go smoothly right up to the very end. And so that is my basic move service, our basic move service. And I really encourage you to use this service. Usually I don't have to encourage too hard. People want to use this service. They're really happy to have some guidance for it. But that's it. So you will be happy and settled and relaxed in your home. That's my goal, that at the end of the day on move day, you are feeling like you're home to your new home. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Mhm.
And Danielle.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Parkins. I'm the executive director here at Aljoya Thornton Place. And I just smile listening to Catherine because I recently moved and I wish I would have had a Catherine. I wish I would have had someone to help me tell me where to put my furniture, and someone to coordinate movers, and someone to help with Comcast, which Catherine, if you're available, I think I still have that up for an option to help with. So Mariah asked me to talk about our COVID-19 response and update. And there were so many layers to this, but I'm going to do my best to kind of explain what we did and where we're at right now, and keep it, under an hour. The truth is COVID has affected all of our lives this last year and a half so greatly. And all of us responded in different ways. So here at Aljoya, our team, even prior to COVID, is trained in infection control. So when everything started to come out, we already had this very strong baseline of knowledge of how to keep everyone safe. So we started with that and then added layers as we started to learn more about COVID and how to keep people safe. A big thing that we all stopped doing everywhere in Seattle was seeing our loved ones. And that was challenging. That was the same for us as staff members and us as residents. We didn't allow people in the building. We made a point of trying to help people be very comfortable in their apartments. And one of my things I think about is, even though everyone was in the building, in their apartments, we were calling everyone every day to see how they were doing. We were delivering cocktails to their doors. We were delivering activities to their doors. So nobody was alone. We were all going through it together. And I take great pride in saying that through the efforts of our team, staff, residents, and family members, we still have only had one resident that has gotten COVID, which was a huge task to make sure. Throughout the year and a half, we did multiple rounds of broad testing, just so we could have that peace of mind that everyone was safe. And we were able to do that right on site, which was fantastic. We went to people's apartments, provided the broad testing, and moved forward. We also were able to provide vaccines on site for our residents and our staff, which was so convenient. I remember when the vaccine started to become available for people, it was hard outside of the community to make appointments, whether it was a convoluted online system through your doctor's office or getting yourself to the site to get vaccinated. Whereas here we were able to bring Walgreens on property to provide those vaccines for people. So now where are we at? Well, just as the city of Seattle is starting to lift restrictions, so are we. We've been following in step with the CDC and the state's guidance to make sure that we're doing everything we can to stay safe while still providing options for our residents. So currently, family members are able to come and visit to residents' apartments, which was a joyous day, being able to welcome back our loved ones into the building. We also are starting up activities again, which is what we're about here at Aljoya. We're about community, we're about being active. So that was huge for us. In fact, I want to take a moment. Behind me, I have artwork from our residents in our watercolor class. That's how much it means to us to stay active and doing the things we love. And that's where we're at with COVID. I mean, we are ready to change direction again if we need to. And we've really become closer as a team and as a community.
Thank you. Thanks, Danielle. I also wanted to mention, I believe, I don't know the exact number, but I think we've had probably 20, 21 residents, new residents move in since the beginning of COVID. So we've had a lot of successful moves during a challenging time, and people were nervous about that, but also really grateful that they moved forward with the plan. A lot of people on the waiting list had this plan in mind well before any of this started. And so now that we're vaccinated and we're able to, be a little bit more comfortable and less nervous, it's a good time to sort of refresh and revisit why you were looking at retirement communities and why you had this next step in place. So, and that's our overview, and we are happy to answer questions. You can ask them in the chat, or you can ask them out loud, whatever is comfortable. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see.
Mariah, I have a few questions in the chat we can start out with.
Okay.
So first question, I believe this is for Andrea. What is the name of the cognitive screening or evaluation?
Sure. It's called the SLUMS exam, the St. Louis University Mental Status Exam.
Okay. And then I have a question for Catherine. So for downsizing services, is a detailed floor plan available if you live out of the state?
Yes, if you have an apartment that you've chosen, I can certainly send you a floor plan so that you can use that when you are working from your home there. Definitely. We can send that to you.
Okay, and I have another question for Andrea. How is the health assessment handled if the resident lives out of state and will be moving to one of the area communities?
Sure, although we prefer an in-person assessment, during COVID, we did do a Zoom assessment. So that's definitely a possibility.
Our goal would be for someone to be able to come in person. Typically, if someone is moving from out of state, they will plan a trip to see the apartment, even if they have family come look first and then say, oh, it's really great, let's move forward. Typically, our preference would be to do an in-person meeting. However, like Andrea said, depending on sort of your circumstances, we can take it on a case-by-case basis and work with you for whatever's going to be the safest route.
Okay, now I have two questions for Mariah. So first one, if a resident lives out of state, is it possible for family members to look at potential apartments before making a reservation deposit? That's the first question, if you want to answer that now.
Yes, absolutely. So anytime you want to have a family member or whoever your representative is to come in and look at a unit, take pictures or FaceTime or whatever works to kind of get that initial look, that's absolutely encouraged and part of the process. And then, we can discuss from there what the next steps would look like. And some people will, from out of state will say, great, I trust my family, I've seen it on video, let's move forward. Some people would prefer to then set up a time to come out and see it in person.
All right, and the second question, so what do you recommend to someone who lives out of state in terms of coordinating the timing of selling their home and moving within 60 days of signing and moving to avoid paying rent for an empty apartment?
Yeah, good question. That's not always the easiest thing to coordinate. Sometimes you will end up having an overlap. Not always. It's really going to be dependent on where you live and what the housing market is like where you live. The idea would be once you reserve an apartment here, then you would move forward with getting your house listed right away so that ideally, if there was an overlap of starting to pay rent, it would be minimal. My suggestion is to keep me very informed about ideal timeframes. What I go off of a lot of times is the last time I spoke with someone on the waiting list. So if the last time I spoke with you, you said you were, a year out from a move, well, we really want to start actively considering apartments that come up then say within 6 months. You do have to understand that there has to be some wiggle room in terms of what comes up here versus what your ideal time frame is, unless you have an interim plan, like staying with a family member for a while if you sell your home and then want to wait for something to come up here. So it's not the easiest question to answer. I do recommend having a realtor and having a meeting with a realtor, even if you think you're 3, 6, a year out from a move. Meet with a realtor, get an idea of the market, get an idea of what they might suggest for getting your house ready, so that it's not that panic time of, oh, Mariah has an apartment for me and now I haven't done anything. That's why Catherine talks so much about the downsizing. And that's why, part of being on the waiting list is that on your side, you're also taking some of those steps towards, the end goal.
Thank you, Mariah. Okay, we have another question for Andrea. So the question is, what happens if you test positive for COVID 72 hours after a move-in?
Good question. At that point, we would then activate our protocol for a COVID positive person. We would have you isolate in your apartment, and we would retest you again probably at the earliest 72 hours after. But yes, you would isolate in your apartment. We would bring an infection control cart that is placed outside of your apartment so that staff would have their PPE like gowns, gloves, masks, face shields available if we need to enter your apartment in an emergency. At any point in time, if you are needing support from us, if you're really not feeling well, then we could definitely step in and support you in that way. Good question.
Thank you, Andrea.
Mhm.
We have another question. I think this is going to be for Mariah. How is the timing of the move and apartment selection handled? Is the apartment typically chosen / reserved 60 days ahead?
Yes, so the idea is when an apartment becomes available, I will start making calls about it. Sometimes that's at the point when somebody else is still occupying it. Sometimes it's at the point when it's already empty. That just depends on the circumstance. At that point, you would be, once I'm able to show it, you're able to look at it and then you would reserve it. So you place a hold on it potentially even before it's move-in ready, because during that 60-day time frame, while you're working on your packing and your planning and all these great things, we're working on getting the apartment all set and ready for you. And that gives us both that time to get that going.
Okay, all right, so we have a few more questions. This is a question regarding the bridge loan. So bridge loans, if you don't have a house to sell and live out of state, is it available if you live out of state? Can securities be used as collateral?
Yes, the answer is yes. That is actually up to Washington Trust Bank, but I know that they will use some of your portfolio as collateral, depending on how much your entrance fee is and how much you have. So they would really have to discuss that with you in terms of how that looked, but I know that it can be done. Also, we have had people use their own financial institutions for this. So if you have a credit union you've worked with for a long time, or some people have used their Edward Jones and taken a loan from some of their holdings there for the entrance fee.
Thank you. Another question, this will be for you again, Mariah. It's a good question. If minor alterations are desired prior to move-in, for example, flooring or painting, at what stage can this be done? The goal, of course, to avoid any extended time from closing to move-in.
Sure. Essentially, once you have placed the reservation deposit and put a hold on a specific apartment, we can start discussing any things that you want done in the apartment. So for the most part, we've worked with all of you long enough to sort of have been able to discuss that this is a good comfortable financial for you, comfortable health-wise. So unless we had any big concerns about any of those things, then we would be able to make changes to the apartment right away. So, and there are a lot of things you can do in the apartment to personalize and make it your own. You can have flooring put in, you can have fixtures put in, you can choose paint colors, you can, put up curtains and put in, a lot of people do custom closets and things like that. So we have resources for all of those things. We have vendors that we use for the flooring and the paint. So again, more things that we can do to support you through that.
Thank you, Mariah, again. So we have another question. Is it possible to have newly purchased furniture moved in before the actual move-in date? For example, a new bed if you're not bringing a bed with you.
Again, that is, for the most part, yes. It, depending on where you're at in the process, but yes, pretty much, if you're moving forward with the reservation and the apartment is completed on our end in terms of all the things we do to turn an apartment over, like the flooring and the paint and the deep cleaning and all those things, then yes, we can accept deliveries for furniture and things.
Now we have a question about monthly rent payments and how do they work? Do they require automatic debit from a bank account? Do you accept checks, accept credit card payments?
So you will receive a statement every month. So even if you move in the middle of the month, your first month's rent will be prorated. You'll receive that statement about a week after you do your initial signing, closing. And then at that point, you can pay to your preference. Some people still write a check, but you can do an automatic withdrawal from your bank account as well. You can't use a credit card for your rent.
Thank you. All right, Catherine, we have a question for you. Do your floor plans include detailed closet dimensions?
Yes, I will measure your closet spaces also. And it also shows where the heating vents are, where the internet connections are, and phone jacks, TV, all of that. It's really quite detailed.
Thank you, Catherine.
Mhm.
If we have any more questions, please put them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. So we'll just give a few more seconds if anyone else has some more questions.
All right.
All right. Okay. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for today's webinar on what to expect when moving into Aljoya. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, Catherine, Danielle, Andrea, and Mariah. They had a very informative talk today, and I hope everyone learned something new. If you have any questions about Aljoya, please feel free to call us at 206-306-7920. Again, I'm DeWitt. I'm the Community Relations Associate at Aljoya Thornton Place. I didn't say that in the beginning, but I'm saying at the end. And I'd like to thank you all for coming today. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good day.
you.